Okay, so Luis Orozco is a licensed clinical social worker with over 15 years of experience in the behavioral health field. He is the executive director of the Whittier Counseling Center, which is located right in the medical offices right across from PIH Health, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right on.
Okay. He is also a mental health commissioner for Los Angeles County. So he's got lots of credentials here. His areas of expertise include mental health, violence prevention, conflict resolution, organizational behavior, crisis management, excuse me, trauma, family counseling, domestic violence, and substance abuse. So Luis does a little bit of everything and is great at everything. So he's also worked extensively in helping and intensively in helping individuals, families, and organizations reach wellness and recovery through evidence-based interventions that are highly effective and culturally competent. So Whittier Counseling Center, we're fortunate to have them here in Whittier, provides individual, group, and family psychotherapy, as well as training and psychological support to organizations. So we actually, Luis and I, are working together on maybe developing some kind of program that we could offer to businesses to assist in training and support for their employees. So a cost-effective way of doing that. So Luis and I spoke in July, and we'll be speaking again in another couple of weeks to see if we can put together a program to offer our businesses. Because in addition to medical assistance and insurance and support that way, we all know that our mental health is equally as important, if not more important these days, my goodness, with all that we're going through. So, Luis, we are so pleased to partner with you today and have you here, and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. With your permission, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna kind of speak about how to stay mentally healthy with everything that's going on. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm gonna start, and please, this is an intimate group. We're a small group, so it's beautiful because then there could be interactions, questions as I speak. If there's anything that comes to your mind and you want to know more about or have questions or concerns about it, please feel free to speak up because because I'm sharing my screen. I'm not seeing everybody. I'm only seeing a couple of you. So if you want to say something, if it's okay with you, just turn on your mic and speak up and ask the question or make whichever comment you want to say. But here I have a picture of a world just to say that right now, needless to say, the world is very complicated. It's always been complicated, but with everything that's going on with the COVID-19, with the social unrest, there's a lot of things that are going on that is having a significant impact in our mental health, and social media highlights a lot of this over and over and over again. And as we're looking at Facebook or Instagram, or we're watching the news or listening to the radio, we are constantly being bombarded by all these social issues and social problems. And again, all this has an impact on our mental health. So what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna speak a little bit about two of the most common type of mental health issues that are out there right now. One of them being depression, and the other one being anxiety. So I'm gonna show you a quick video on depression, and I want to get your feedback, and I want to know what you guys think about that video. After that, I'm gonna do the same thing, another brief video that would be on the topic of anxiety.
Whenever the black dog made an appearance, I felt empty and life just seemed to slow down. He could surprise me with a visit for no reason or occasion. The black dog made me look and feel older than my years. When the rest of the world seemed to be enjoying life, I could only see it through the black dog. Activities that usually brought me pleasure suddenly ceased to. He liked to ruin my appetite. He chewed up my memory and my ability to concentrate. Doing anything or going anywhere with the black dog required superhuman strength. At social occasions, he'd sniff out what confidence I had and chase it away. My biggest fear was being found out. I worried that people would judge me. Because of the shame and stigma of the black dog, I was constantly worried that I'd be found out. So I invested vast amounts of energy into covering him up. Keeping up an emotional lie is exhausting. Black dog could make me think and say negative things. He could make me irritable and difficult to be around. He would take my love and bury my intimacy. He loved nothing more than to wake me up with highly repetitive and negative thinking. He also liked to remind me how exhausted I was going to be the next day. Having a black dog in your life isn't so much about feeling a bit down, sad or blue. At its worst, it's about being devoid of feeling altogether. As I got older, the black dog got bigger and he started hanging around all the time. I'd chase him off with whatever I thought might send him running. But more often than not, he'd come out on top. Going down became easier than getting up again. So I became rather good at self-medication, which never really helped. Eventually, I felt totally isolated from everything and everyone. The black dog had finally succeeded in hijacking my life. When you lose all joy in life, you can begin to question what the point of it is. Thankfully, this was the time that I sought professional help. This was my first step towards recovery and a major turning point in my life. I learned that it doesn't matter who you are, the black dog affects millions and millions of people. It is an equal opportunity mongrel. I also learned that there was no silver bullet or magic pill. Medication can help some, and others might need a different approach altogether. I also learned that being emotionally genuine and authentic to those who are close to you can be an absolute game changer. Most importantly, I learnt not to be afraid of the black dog, and I taught him a few new tricks of my own. The more tired and stressed you are, the louder he barks. So it's important to learn how to quiet your mind. Exercise can be as effective for treating mild to moderate depression as antidepressants. So go for a walk or a run and leave the mutt behind. Keep a mood journal. Getting your thoughts on paper can be cathartic and often insightful. Also keep track of the things that you have to be grateful for. The most important thing to remember is that no matter how bad it gets, if you take the right steps, talk to the right people, black dog days can and will pass. I wouldn't say that I'm grateful for the black dog, but he's been an incredible teacher. He forced me to reevaluate and simplify my life. I learnt that rather than running away from my problems, it's better to embrace them. The black dog may always be part of my life, but he'll never be the beast that he was. We have an understanding. I've learned through knowledge, patience, discipline and humour, the worst black dog can be made to heal. If you're in difficulty, never be afraid to ask for help. There is absolutely no shame in doing so. The only shame is missing out on life.
Thoughts? What did you guys think about the video?
I liked it. I think it's a great reminder that, everybody has different levels of anxiety and depression, and there's, it's not, what am I trying to say? It's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And get help.
I like the analogy with the dog, because some people don't know how to describe it or to, even come to terms with what you're feeling or doing. Sometimes you just don't know, is this normal? Is this not normal? So I like it kind of like it's a thing that comes and goes in my life, and now I've identified it as an object or an animal.
Yeah. It was easy to relate to by giving it an object. Yeah, I agree. Sure.
For sure. Yeah, thank you so much to both of you for saying that. Definitely, mental health is something that affects everybody, every single human being, and many times there's a lot of stigma. I mean, we see it in terms of sometimes we take these services to various businesses, large corporations, and there are many people that are afraid to reach out for help because they're afraid to be, for being judged. But the reality is that a lot of us are affected by this. Statistically speaking, it's 1 in 5 they're dealing with a mental health condition. So if we look at the number of people which in this room, we could say that at least one of us, is experiencing some type of mental health situation or condition. So it is something that is very prevalent in our communities. It's something that is there, and there's a lot of stigma, but it is also something that is very treatable and that people could get help. So so again, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Carol, for kind of giving me some of your thoughts about this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and show you another video, and this one is a lot quicker, and it kind of gives you a quick overview of what anxiety is. And I bring anxiety to the table because a lot of people right now, because of everything that's going on in the world, uh, they're feeling either depressed, anxious. There's other conditions as well, but these are the two most common that we're seeing right now in the community.
He worries about things. Of course, everybody worries. It's natural. But this guy has got generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, and he pretty much worries all the time. You see, people with GAD have trouble turning their worrying and anxiety off. There's a sense of impending doom that terrible things will happen, even when there is little evidence that anything will actually turn out bad. This constant and uncontrollable worry gets in the way of having a more normal day-to-day life, and many experience physical symptoms like fatigue, muscle tension, insomnia, and mental tensions like concentration loss, nervousness, stress, and all of this can contribute to an inability to go places or experience and enjoy things and to simply be happy, and this in turn will stop. There is help out there. There are methods to approaching and gaining control over your negative thoughts. You can look into support groups, cognitive behavioral therapy, and possibly even medication. Talk to your health professional for more information. Most of all, know that you are not the only one that has this. It is more common than you think, and that things can be done to help you cope.
Are you guys able to see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see. Yeah, so any thoughts about generalized anxiety disorder? So that's another one that it's common, and it's basically a lot of it is people who constantly worry about things that may happen. Sometimes are just what ifs. They're not necessarily in front of us, but for many of us, we're always thinking, wow, what if this happens? So I gotta do this, or I gotta do that, or and our mind, it's constantly working and working, and it's not resting. And many times that brings a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I have my daughter is like this. She's like, what if? And I'm the opposite kind of person. I kind of plow through things, and I don't think I ever was that way. So I have a hard time like dealing with her when it's like, I run two businesses and I have employees, and I get a flat tire and I get this, and I just roll through everything, just steamroll through it. And then she's like, oh, this tiny little thing, or I'm anxious about, or I worry about. I have a hard time, I guess, dealing with people like that, because I almost kind of like suck it up and let's, you think that's bad, let me tell you, but helping, I guess, to help me understand where they're coming from. The whole anxiety. I've had employees miss work because, they've had anxiety over whatever. And so I guess for me, having that compassion or understanding is where I need to learn that it is a real thing. And we're not all the same. So I guess for me, I'm looking at it a different end, not necessarily for me having anxiety, but dealing with people that have anxiety and understanding that it is real.
For some of us, being exposed to this information just gives us a little bit more understanding of what people go through, and we are able to empathize and connect with them, and hopefully through that build better relationships. Because I think a lot of having good relationships depends on the level of understanding each people have with each other. And on the other hand, for those of us who do experience anxiety, it kind of normalizes the situation, and it helps us understand that we're not the only ones sometimes dealing with these type of conditions, that it's something that affects millions and millions of people. And the thing with anxiety is that much of the anxiety is it's this fear. It's fear of the unknown, what's going to happen. And again, I know I'm being a broken record with this, but it's just the world that we live in right now, where there is definitely a lot of unknowns. What's going to happen with our jobs, what's going to happen with this whole COVID-19 situation, what's going to happen with the schools, what's going to happen, all kinds of what's going to happen in the holidays. Am I going to meet with my extended family? Can I, do I stay home? And so, it is definitely true that right now there's a significant increase, and it impacts everybody, whether it's the business community or the faith community or our families or each of us individually. So now we're gonna focus on, okay, Luis, enough with the theory. You're telling me about the problems. You're making me feel more stressed. What I want to know is, give me solutions. Tell me, how do I go about this, and how can I stay away from this type of stress? So I'm gonna share my screen. And so what stress does to our brain, it literally impacts our the way that we think. So there's a part of the brain, that's the frontal part, usually called the frontal lobe, that deals with the higher type of thinking. So this is a part of the brain that it's used when we're trying to problem solve. So if I'm dealing with problems within my family or within my business or the people that I work with, and I'm trying to resolve this problem, I'm using my frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is responsible for executive thinking. When I'm feeling overly stressed, what ends up happening is my frontal lobe becomes impacted, and it's a lot more difficult to think clearly. And so now moving into the solution. So okay, Luis, again, you told me all this, but I want to know, how do I go about it? How do I go about this? And the answer is building resiliency. Resiliency could take us a long, long way in terms of how to deal with these difficult situations. So what is resiliency? Resiliency is the ability to modify our behaviors, our thoughts, our actions as needed in order to succeed. A simpler way of saying this is, resiliency is having the ability to bounce back when we fall, when we're dealing with the difficult situation. So someone who is resilient is somebody who's able to move forward despite obstacles. These are the characteristics of somebody who is resilient. So if you're sitting here, you're watching this video, and you're thinking, okay, I want to be resilient. What do I need to do? These are the things that we need to work on to be resilient. And the acronym here is FORCE. F is for flexibility. So that means that if I want to be resilient, there has to be flexibility in me. I got to be adaptable to changes in our world and our environments. People who tend to be rigid about things have a difficulty being resilient at times. And we live in a world that is fluid, that's always moving, that is always changing. So obviously, the more flexible you are, the better that we could adapt to things. So we want to be like water. And why do I say water? Well, water is very powerful, but it also has the ability to be flexible and adapt. If you see a river and how the water flows, if there's a rock, and between that river and the water is flowing, the water would be able to go around it, over it, may be very flexible to continue its path. Does that make sense? Any questions? And again, I don't see
Makes
anybody.
total
So
sense.
okay, thank you for that. Um, so another part of being resilient means being optimistic. And being optimistic is looking at the positive side of things. Even problems that we have that are sometimes difficult to deal with, or we're saying, oh, why me? Why is this happening? Many of those problems become tremendous learning opportunities. For us as an agency, for Whittier Counseling Center, what happened to us when the COVID hit and we were to adapt to a new platform, it was pretty problematic because all our clinicians, we were a team of about 15 people, and we were all used to kind of dealing with, working in individual therapy face to face, in a traditional way. This whole situation this problem made us uh, uh, adapt and focus on a new approach. And for us, it was going virtually. And so we became very optimistic about this. And we said, well, maybe this is a good thing. And to be quite frank, it ended up being a good thing. Now, with virtual conferences and virtual sessions, what we're seeing is that it's easier for people to reach out to us, and we're actually seeing an increase in the amount of services. So our optimism ended up being, a reality to us, where things ended up very, very good in terms of people getting more access to our services. So R is for being resourceful. So to be resilient, we need to be resourceful. And when we're talking about resources, we're speaking about two kinds of resources. One resource is the internal resources. So internal resources, examples of that could be humor. Humor is an internal resource. So I'm dealing with a difficult situation. I'm feeling a little bit down, but then I use that humor, that internal resource that I have, to feel better. And by feeling better, then I am more productive. I am better able to deal with things. Another example of an internal resource for many people is spirituality. So whether it's through prayer or through meditation or to feeling, part of something bigger than ourselves, many times this gives a lot of strength. This gives a lot of motivation, and that's another example of internal resources. Now, resources can also be defined as external resources, and external resources could be financial resources. If I have a problem and I have money saved in the bank, I could use that money to, maybe hire someone to help me deal with the problem, like a consultant, or I could pay for a service that will help me better resolve the situation that I'm dealing with. So money is an example of an external resource. Our network, the people that we know, our family, our friends, our coworkers, they are external resources to us. So if I have a problem and maybe I don't know how to deal with that situation, I could reach out to a friend, to a coworker, to somebody within my network to pick their brain or to ask for help. So people who are resilient tend to be very resourceful, both having internal resources and external resources. And what I encourage you to do as you're hearing this is to think about this and to say, am I resourceful? Do I need to work on developing more internal resources? Do I need to work on developing more external resources? Do I need to network more? An interesting thing about people who are resilient is they tend to be very curious. So curiosity is another element of people who are resilient. And why curiosity? Curiosity means that we are eager to learn, to explore. And it is through that learning and through that exploration that many times we find gems. We find things that could be very useful to us. And the last word here in this acronym is empathy. And empathy is having the ability to connect with other people, to put yourself in other people's shoes. And why is this an element of resiliency? Well, when I have the ability to put myself in other people's shoes or to connect with them at an emotional level, then that creates a bridge between me and that person. And those bridges means I have access to more external resources, and it means also that I could learn from that person, or that person could learn from me as well. Any thoughts or questions?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I like that acronym, and the resource thing is super helpful. I think having people to bounce things off or to kind of keep you grounded. I like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
And
would definitely say optimism is the biggest thing out of those, just because it reframes your whole mindset, and then that just sets you up for success in the other areas.
yeah, I love what I'm hearing. This is great.
Great
And
outlook.
yeah, so these are the components, and I'm glad that you are finding some use to this, and that you think that it's something that might be useful. Um, so we cannot speak about how to develop resiliency without speaking about something called willpower. And willpower is another interesting concept. I remember years ago, I've been doing this for a while. I said, why is it that some people are able to be very resilient and do all these things, and some people have a little bit more difficult doing this? So I'm sitting there, looking at the clouds and thinking thinking about how to resolve these big issues, and then the mind willpower came to my mind to me, and I said, okay, let me look at willpower, because it seems like one of the key characteristics of people who tend to be successful and whatever they want to accomplish is they have this thing called willpower. So what is willpower? So I started exploring and looking at willpower from a scientific perspective, and what many scientists or researchers believe is that willpower works a lot like a muscle. Willpower works a lot like a muscle. Why like a muscle? Well, just like a muscle, the more that you use willpower, the better you get at it, the stronger you get with this willpower. So if I find myself struggling, not having motivation to do things that I need to do, that means that I need willpower to push through. And to develop that willpower, I need to exercise that muscle. Now, here's a question. How do I exercise that muscle? Like, is there a way? Like, do I go to a gym specifically designed for willpower? Is there a pill or a magic formula? Well, to exercise willpower, all we need to do is do things that are good for us that many times we don't want to do. So whenever I engage in an activity that I don't want to do, but I know that it's good for me, and I engage in it despite me not wanting to do that, I'm engaged. I'm kind of lifting iron in terms of willpower. I'm exercising that willpower, and we could start with small things. So let's say, for instance, that I say to myself, okay, I got to start losing weight. I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna apply this whole concept about willpower. And maybe it's difficult to do 1 hour of exercise. Maybe the way that we initially exercise this willpower is exercising even though we don't want to, for 15, 20 minutes. And at that moment, you are doing something that is typically difficult for you, yet you're still moving forward. Now, here's the other thing about willpower. Willpower, when we overly use willpower in one day, so let's say that I have a very difficult day at work and I'm constantly having to use willpower, maybe because I've dealt with people who were not too nice or difficult to deal with, and I'm constantly using my willpower. That tells me that at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to have a lot of willpower left. And so to restore this willpower, rest is essential. Rest is essential. And I'm looking at the time. I'm going to go a little bit faster. It's 11:44. But rest is essential because it helps us restore that willpower. Now, I'm going to go over these 7, 8 areas that scientifically proven are very likely to help people feel better. One of these areas is the physical area. And what I'm going to encourage you to do as I go over these areas is to think to yourself, listen to these areas and say, which areas am I missing? Which of these areas am I missing? And if we find any of these areas that we're missing, the goal here is to work on those so we could be more physically and mentally healthy. So again, just as this image illustrates, the first area is a physical area. So in order for human beings to be healthy, they need to be active. There's this doctor who has done a lot of research on this. He's a professor at Harvard, and he gathered a group of people who were dealing with mild to moderate depression. And this group of people, he divided them into three subgroups. One group, he said, you guys are going to take antidepressants. Another group, he said, you guys are going to exercise. And the third group, they didn't get exercise or medication. It was the control group. They just kept doing whatever they were doing. At the end of the study, he found that the people who were exercising, they were getting the same benefit, if not more, than the people taking the medication. And I'm not here to say don't take medication or anything like that, but this is just to illustrate how physical exercise can many times help us feel a lot better emotionally. And the numbers there that he found was that in order for exercise to be therapeutic, it needed to be 5 times a week for a minimum of 20 minutes. 5 times a week for a minimum of 20 minutes, or 3 times a week for a minimum of 45 minutes. In the physical area, we're not only looking at exercising, but there's other two major subcategories. And this is good nutrition. So eating healthy, we were talking about this when we initially connected. Eating healthy is crucial. Um, our physical body and our mental well-being, they're interconnected. We can't separate those two. So if I don't feel well with my body, if I'm not eating healthy, it's definitely going to have an impact on my mental health. So good nutrition will take us a long way. Another thing that is essential is sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene. I cannot say this enough. In order for us to be emotionally healthy, our body needs rest. Many researchers, scientists have found that humans typically need anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep a day. And hence why many times we come up with that magic number of 8 hours. But sleep is very, very important. Another area that is important is the emotional area. So, in order for human beings to be healthy, they need to do things that they enjoy. So, for some of us, as Carol was sharing with us, and I also shared, I have a dog. For some of us, it's spending time with our pets. For other people, it could be playing board games or fishing or being with friends, doing things that you enjoy. What that does, it releases dopamine and endorphins into your body, which are chemicals that are known to help us feel very, very good. So first area is the physical area. Second area is the emotional area. And again, the emotional area being doing things that we enjoy. And that could be a million things. Another area that takes people a long way in terms of their mental health is the spiritual area. So, as a therapist, I cannot tell you what to believe, and that's not my goal at all. Everybody, practices various types of spiritual activities, and some people may not, practice many activities as well. Um, but what I could tell you is what some of the research says. And I looked at some of these studies, and there was one that I came across that was very interesting. They gathered a group of Buddhist monks and they asked them to meditate. And so they looked at their brain as they were meditating. And what they found was that when these Buddhist monks were meditating, their brain was releasing dopamine and endorphins, and the brain was acting as though they were enjoying something, which, again, enjoyment and doing pleasurable things are very good for our mental health. Interestingly, they did the same thing with the group of Catholic nuns. So they gathered a group of Catholic nuns and they asked them, okay, engage in deep prayer. And as they engaged in deep prayer, they looked at their brains and they found that when they were doing this, similar to the Buddhist monks, they were also releasing dopamine and endorphins, again, these chemicals that help us feel very well. This is to say that spirituality is helpful for many people, not everybody, but many, many people. I've worked with people who say, "Wow, Luis, this whole thing about spirituality is not necessarily my thing. I'm atheist or I'm agnostic. I don't certainly have faith or believe in anything." Yet I find many of these individuals engaging in social justice movements or engaging in helping our environment. And from my perspective, that's pretty spiritual because you're focusing on something that it's bigger than yourself. So spirituality is not necessarily always attached to religion. To stay healthy, it is also important for us to make social contact, for us to socialize with others. And this is why the pandemic has been very, very difficult in us because human beings are wired to connect with each other. It's part of our design. It's how we stay healthy, and it is also how we survive as a species. Our many times our strengths comes with numbers, and so we form families, we form communities, we form societies, countries, and as we stick together, we have this intricate system that allows us to accomplish a whole bunch of things. Doctors, veterinarians, teachers, and we stay interconnected with each other. And so, in order for us to be very healthy, we need to connect with other human beings. One of the worst things that you could do to a human being is isolate them. And that's why jails and prisons many times exist. When somebody breaks the law, what they'll do is they'll isolate them. That will create pain, emotional pain, because nobody likes to be isolated. And and here's the thing, many of us don't need jail or prison to isolate. There's some people out there that isolate on their own. And then they start, as they disconnect from other people, they start having unhealthy thoughts. They're more likely to get depressed. And so, a good way to stay healthy is to stay socially connected. Another area that is very important for us to focus on is the intellectual area. This is also fascinating. It used to be that scientists would think, okay, we start dying from the moment that we're born. What does this mean? It means that as we age, our brain, more brain cells are dying, and we're regenerating brain cells at a slower rate, and hence the process of aging. And many times as we get older, we become forgetful about things. But 10 years ago, I was reading this research, and at that time, I used to say, "Oh, the most up-to-date research," and I'm dating myself a little bit here. But in the intellectual area, when they were doing this research, they found that people who were learning new things, it was like their brain was recognizing the new information that was coming in, and it was having those brain cells live for a longer period of time. And brain cells have a lifespan just like we do. So as those brain cells will eventually die, the brain will regenerate brain cells a lot quicker when we were learning things. So to stay healthy, it is very important for us to read, to learn new things, even to play, like, I don't know, puzzles or chess or games that kind of um, they help our intellectual area be more developed. So that's another area. The occupational area is something that is very important for the human being to be healthy. People who are not occupied, who are not engaging in productive lives, many times are more likely to get depressed, to get sad. So, in order for us to be healthy, we need to be productive. We need to engage in work, not overwork. Some of us spread ourselves so thin that it's also not healthy, but it is to be occupied and to do things that are productive for either our community, for our families, for ourselves. The other thing about work is that it brings purpose, and purpose is very, very, very powerful. Many individuals who lack purpose, who don't have a sense of direction, have also a tendency to get depressed, have also a tendency to develop mental health conditions. So if we want to stay healthy, staying productive is something that's really good. Um, the other area is the emotional area. I'm sorry, the environmental area. And the environmental area here is that according to this theory, there are certain environments that we spend time in that many times could be unhealthy. For some people, the unhealthy environment could be work, where there's a lot of problems and conflicts, and hence why we as an agency want to kind of help with that. Um, and other unhealthy environments for other people could be their own homes, where there's domestic violence, where there's conflicts, where there's a lot of fights. So if we are to work on the environmental area, that means that we do our best to limit our time in unhealthy environments. So that means that if my work is an unhealthy environment, I'm gonna go to my job, I'm gonna do what I have to do, be very productive, have good work ethic, but then I'm also gonna have a life outside that work. Because if I spend too much time in a place where it's not too healthy for me, then it's gonna have an impact on my mental health. I was working with a teenager once, and he was having a lot of problems because his parents were always fighting and arguing, and he would come to me and say, "Hey, Luis, I can't, I can't focus. I try to do my homework, try to do things here, but my parents are always arguing and fighting." And I in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to say this, but I really had to work with him in finding maybe extracurricular activities that he could do so he won't spend too much time with that bickering and unhealthy environment, and maybe join a sport, or join a chess club or something that may limit the person's time in a very unhealthy environment. The question could be, what if there's no way around it and I have to be there? Again, it's work or it's home, and it's not like I could say I quit and problem gone. Well, the other way to work on the environmental area is bringing healthy energy into that area. And how the heck do we do that? How do we bring healthy energy into an unhealthy place? Sometimes it's as simple as coming into the office with a smile, just being kind to others, maybe even bringing a plant, uncluttering a place. There's a lot of ways that people could, and many things that people could do to create healthier environmental areas. We're almost there, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions. Um, Another area that is very important for the human being is the financial area. I think we are probably all in agreement that when there's financial problems, that tends to be very stressful and affect people's mental health. There's many people who commit suicide when they are going through significant financial struggles. So if we want to remain healthy, it is important for us to engage in financial hygiene. This means making sure that we don't spend more than what we make, that we save for a rainy day, that we do all those things that are prudent, all those financial things that we need to do for us to be financially healthy. And many people do not learn these skills at home. Sometimes they have to learn it on their own. Some people, they do learn it from their parents or some mentor, but many people don't. So it's important for us to read books about this, consult with financial advisors, do things like these that would help us stay financially healthy. I'm grateful to be here with you. I know I went very fast. I wanted to make sure that I covered everything and that you took as much as possible from this. But any thoughts, questions? Was this helpful? Is there anything in your mind that you want to discuss?
I'm so grateful. It's so funny because I thought the issues were my own. I didn't realize people being impacted by their environment was a thing other people had issues with, because I'm very sensitive to my environment. If there's yelling, screaming, I gotta go. I cannot. Yeah. Like if our friends or we're at a friend's house and people are fighting, I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta get out of here. So it's so nice to see that it is more of a global segment to emotional health and not just me. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Tanya, for those words. And yeah, becoming conscious about that is amazing, because once we become aware of it, then we become more selective of where we spend our time and how we spend our time. And we invest in those environments. Like we say, okay, this is an unhealthy environment. and I need to invest. And when I say invest, I'm not even speaking about investing financially, but putting the energy on creating a healthier work environment. So thank you, Tanya. Thank you for your for your comments.
Yeah, I think it was very timely, and it helps me, with my own, I guess, environment, realizing that I probably have a lot more stress in my life than I acknowledge. I'm one of those people that push everything down. And part of it, one of the things you said as far as like exercising, like prior to COVID, I exercised, pretty on average 5 times a week. And I felt like it just kind of helped me handle things, releasing those endorphins early in the morning. I could just roll with the day. And really kind of now where I sit here, where I'm not exercising, I'm out of the habit, making poor choices with eating and things like that, and how it really affects our being and our way of coping with stuff. So something I need to do a better job at.
Agreed. Me too. Me too.
This is beautiful, Cheryl, that you're saying this, because you are applying the concepts. This is how these trainings should work. Many times we're very quick at seeing what other people are doing wrong. Oh, this person should be doing this person should be doing that. But if you want information like this to be helpful, one of the best things you could do is to analyze your own self, make a self-assessment and say, what do I need to work on? What are some of the areas? And for me, it's music to my ears, Chair. I get excited just to hear you say, I know that I need to work on the exercise, and I know I need to improve my eating, because that tells me that this information, it's going to be useful, and it's bringing that awareness. Here's a quick tip, and I'm sorry I'm going a little bit over. I get a little bit overly excited about this, but here's a quick tip. For anything that you want to change, 3 steps: attention, intention, and action. So attention means becoming aware of what the issue is. So right now, Cheryl is being a great teacher for us. She's saying, okay, I'm becoming aware of this situation. Now, the second step, Cheryl, and everybody here, is intention. So now that you're aware, what are you going to do about it? What's going to be, where are you going to move towards? Many times just people think about things that they should do, but they are not intentional. We cannot be healthy, we cannot be productive without being intentional. And I could tell, Cheryl, that you've accomplished a lot and done a lot of things. And a lot of that is because of you being intentional, going for what you want. And the third step in this is action. So now that I become intentional and I know, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be moving towards to, now I have to engage in action, because none of this works without putting it into behavior. These concepts become sterile if there's no action. So that means putting on the tennis shoes or the sneakers and going for that walk, going for that run, if we go to a fast food place, is choosing between a Big Mac and a grilled chicken sandwich or a salad. And anyway, I'm gonna stay quiet now.
It's very true, and not making excuses like, well, my gym's closed, so I'm just gonna have to wait and blame it all on COVID, whatever.
Other ways to do it, right?
Set my behavior and come up with something else. So thanks for all you do for our society.
Yes.
Yeah.
So important right now.
Yeah.
All right, everybody have a great day, and we
Thank
will see you again.
All right. Have a beautiful day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.